Unit 8, Day 4 notes. Today we're talking about trapezoids and kites. A trapezoid is a quadrilateral with exactly one pair of opposite sides parallel. So that would be this side, this side. Those would be the only pair that are parallel. The parallel sides on a trapezoid are called the bases. The non-parallel sides are called the legs. The base angles are two consecutive angles whose common side is a base. So you'll have four base angles. This is a base angle, and this is also a base angle, because again, they share a base. The mid segment is a segment whose endpoints are the midpoints of the legs. So if I were to find a midpoint on each leg, for example, let's say the midpoint is this point here and that point there. The line that connects those 2 points would be the mid segment. So this part would be congruent with this part, and this part with this part when you have a mid segment. The mid segment is parallel to the basis, and its length is half the sum of the bases. Half of the sum of the bases. So what that means is I should be able to take, let's say this is B1, base 1, and this is base 2. So I would take 1/2 of base 1 plus base 2, and that would give you the mid segment, the length of the mid segment. Now there's a special trapezoid where the two legs are congruent. And when the two legs are congruent, that's called an isosceles trapezoid. Just like when you have two congruent sides on a triangle, it's an isosceles triangle. There's a such thing as an isosceles trapezoid when the two legs are congruent. When the two legs are congruent, the two base angles are going to be congruent. That are for all four base angles, should I say. Also, the diagonals of the trapezoid will be congruent only on an isosceles trapezoid. If you notice, we didn't mention a diagonal before. So this one would have the same length as this one, or that part, and this part with this part. In total, they would be the same. And lastly, we're going to talk about the kite. A kite is a quadrilateral with exactly two pairs of congruent consecutive sides. And I'm going to say this is illustrated on picture A. So this side is consecutive with this side, and they will be congruent. And this side will be congruent with this side. Too short with the too short would go together, and the too long would go together. That's probably a simple way of putting it. The second statement says exactly one pair of opposite angles are congruent. And I'll illustrate this on picture B. The only pair of opposite angles that are congruent would be this angle formed here in that corner with this angle formed in this corner. So basically the angle formed by joining the two non-consecutive sides, or non-congruent sides. Sorry, the two non-congruent sides. The next fact says exactly one diagonal bisects a pair of opposite angles. So I'll demonstrate this on picture C. So the diagonal, the shorter one, will bisect, sorry, the longer diagonal will bisect the angles. So this angle and this angle. They're not going to be the same measurement, but they get cut in half. The diagonals are also perpendicular. And I'll show this on picture D. So when the diagonals meet, they will form a 90-degree angle. Last but not least, I'm going to mention exactly one diagonal bisects the other diagonal. And I'll demonstrate that. Oops. On picture with D. And this would be the bisected diagonal. So it's cut in half. Not the longer one, but the shorter one will be cut in half. The reason we showed you those concepts on 4 individual pictures is so that it wouldn't overcrowd one kite. But truthfully, I could have drawn all of that on one kite. It's just, it would have been too much information, and it would have been a little bit of an overload. So now we're going to work some practice problems. The first one is a trapezoid, and it wants us to find the measure of angle C. We know that AB is parallel with CD because of those arrows. So angle A is consecutive with angle C. So they're going to add up to 180. So I know angle C plus 125 is 180. So that means angle C has to be 55 degrees. And then it says on trapezoid H, J, K, L, M, and N are the midpoints of the legs. So I can indicate that by putting tallies, where this segment will be congruent with that segment, since M is the midpoint. JN is congruent with NK. So that means that segment MN is the mid segment. And then it tells us HJ is 32 So let's mark that on our picture. LK is 60. It wants us to find the midsegment. And earlier in our notes, we said the midsegment was 1/2 the sum of the bases. So that means MN is going to equal 1/2 B1 plus B2. In other words, 1/2 of 32 plus 60, which is 1/2 of 92, which would put us at 90 is 45, so 46 units. GHJ is a kite. We're going to find each measure. So we know that this is perpendicular and this GR is congruent with JR. We know GH is congruent with HJ, GK with JK. We're also told that GHJ, this corner, the whole corner, is 90 degrees. So we'll mark that using the 90-degree box. And GKJ, so let's highlight that angle. GKJ, so it's this entire corner down here where K is located. That represents 36 degrees. It wants us to find the measure of HGK. So HGK. So we're looking for this corner here where G is. Now, to find that out, we know that the sum of all angles of any quadrilateral is 360 degrees. We have 90 and we have 36. And we recall from our notes that angle G which is what we're looking for, and angle J are congruent. Angle G is congruent with angle J because that's what kites do. So that helps me a whole lot when I'm finding angle G because if I call both of those x, so x plus 90 plus 36 is going to give me 360. So that's 2x plus 126 is equal to 360. Subtract 126, you would have 2x is equal to 234, and then divide by 2, you get 117. So angle G, what we're looking for, is 117. Alright, let's erase some of my highlights to free up my picture a little. Alright, on the next problem, it tells us that HG is 7, so we can mark that on the picture. HG is this piece here. GR is 5, so it's this segment here. It wants us to find HR, this segment here. So we can separate the right triangle. G, R, H. We already know HG is 7. And GR is 5. So we're looking for B. So we know 5 squared plus B squared is equal to 7 squared, which is 25 plus B squared is equal to 49. Subtract 25, you would have B squared is equal to 24. And then take the square root of 24. Simplify it for the exact answer. When you simplify it, you know that 4 times 6 composes 24, so it would be 2 square root of 6 as a final answer for HR. That's the exact answer, but you could always put that in your calculator and get a decimal approximation. However, this concludes your notes for the day.